Hi everybody, I'm back. Welcome to Langer at the Mic. I'm Mike Langer. I know it's been a while, and that's because, as you could tell, I'm no longer in the heart of downtown Toronto because almost 6 months ago, I moved up to Thunder Bay, Ontario, where I've been working here as a news reporter and part-time sports anchor. Obviously, it was the biggest and riskiest decision I've ever made, but it's been paying off because I've been getting tons of valuable experience here as a broadcaster. Even though I loved my job last summer as a story editor for TSN and SportsCenter and the Jay Onright Show, I ultimately wanted to be on air and on camera, which is why I made the move here to Northwest Ontario. But I also want to connect with you guys here and on Twitter at Mike Langer, so I finally decided to commit to a content creating schedule that I can manage with my work and personal life. I'll have a little bit more on that later. Now, I hate to come back on a negative note, but after all the praise and love we've given to Jeff Gordon, Kent Hughes, and the front office over the last year, I feel like they're not getting the most out of this second season or first full season that they've been leading the Montreal Canadiens. A lot of that is out of their control, but some of it is. So today I'll be talking about my 4 biggest concerns that I have about the Montreal Canadiens right now. The tank versus no tank debate has been going on all season long, of course, and I want to preface this by saying that even though I made a video early last offseason about reasons why the Montreal Canadiens should not tank this season, I did change my mind when they lost 10 of 11 games in late December, and when Kaden Guhle, Sean Monahan, Juraj Slafkovsky, Cole Caulfield, and everyone else got injured. And then, of course, I saw Connor Bedard light it up at the World Juniors. We're also just over a week removed from a trade deadline where Kent Hughes did virtually nothing after Tyler Toffoli, Ben Sherratt, Arturi Lehkonen, and Brett Kulak all yielded first or second round picks last year. And while I'm in favor of tanking, I'm not in favor of blowing it up because it would have taken trading Caulfield, Suzuki, Guhle, Montembeault, Allen, and others that contributed to a lot of wins earlier this season. So the Canadiens would have had to trade them all essentially to fully guarantee a last place finish, kind of like the Chicago Blackhawks did last offseason. So with that being said, my first biggest concern is that the Montreal Canadiens should have traded both Joel Edmondson and Josh Anderson at the trade deadline for whatever they could have received in return. Both players would have been solid additions to Stanley Cup contending teams. Obviously, Joel Edmondson is a Stanley Cup champion. Josh Anderson is big, he's fast, he's physical, he's got a really good shot. But at this point, getting them off the roster and off the salary cap is, in my opinion, more important than maximizing their value for what they could get in return in a trade. Again, I appreciate how valuable both players are, both on the ice and off the ice as veterans and leaders in that locker room. But in Edmondson's case, the Habs just have way too many left-handed defensemen in their system, which makes Joel Edmondson essentially redundant. As for Josh Anderson, like I said, he's big, he's fast, he's physical, he has a violent shot, he's a big game performer, just like he was in the playoffs a couple of years ago and seemingly every time the Habs play the Leafs. But he's not skilled enough to produce consistently at a high level, and I think he knows that he cannot play his style at 100% intensity every single game if he wants to make it through an 82-game season. And of course, if Hughes has the opportunity to unload Josh Anderson's $5.5 million cap hit for the next 4 years without retaining any of it, I think he should do so immediately. Sure, maybe Hughes and Gordon will turn around and trade both Josh Anderson and Joel Edmondson this offseason for ridiculous value in return, but trading both would have given the Montreal Canadiens so much more immediate flexibility with how they will continue building their roster, while obviously helping them lose more games for the tank going into a draft with a loaded top 5. My second biggest concern is what the heck was their plan with Juraj Slafkovsky? Sure, there's value to giving him a taste of NHL action at 18 years old and also allowing him to have the opportunity to work with skills coach Adam Nicholas. But a vast majority of the time, he played with what we would all consider very unskilled players in the bottom 6. And there are also 15 other players on the Montreal Canadiens who have more power play ice time per game than Juraj Slafkovsky did while he was healthy. And you want to talk about putting him in positions to succeed? I think the power play would have been a perfect opportunity for Slafkovsky to get more experience, more ice time. He has a really great shot for an 18-year-old, especially his one-timer. We saw him score a couple of goals off of one-timers from pretty far out sometimes. So if again, assuming everyone's healthy, if Slafkovsky could be on the right side and Caulfield on the left side on the power play, that gives the Canadiens two legitimate one-timer threats. And I'm not sure why Marty St. Louis and Burrows didn't use that look more often this year. So with how the Habs seemingly did not have a plan for Slafkovsky at the NHL level, I don't know why they didn't just send him to the Laval Rocket in the AHL, or maybe even all the way down to Major Junior in the Q or in the OHL, or maybe even back to Europe, just somewhere that he could have touched the puck more often, gotten more ice time, and just develop his skills more. And he should have had the opportunity to play with Slovakia in the World Juniors. While I was very critical of the Montreal Canadiens when they drafted Juraj Slafkovsky first overall at the Bell Center, I was there myself and I reacted to it pretty evidently as such, but I've supported Slafkovsky ever since that pick and still believe that he can justify being selected first overall, but only 4 goals, 10 points in 39 games, playing in disjointed roles and eventually getting injured is a failure of a rookie season in my opinion, and that's more so on the front office and coaching staff than it is on Slafkovsky's part. My third biggest concern, and I've been complaining about this all season on Twitter at Mike Langer, is the power play. Now, I guess I shouldn't complain about the Habs not scoring goals on the power play if I'm going to advocate for them to tank, but they've been bad on the power play for such a long time, and it better be better next year. And last but not least, my fourth biggest concern of the Montreal Canadiens this season is the injuries. Sure, a lot of that is out of their control and attributable to bad luck, and I also believe that if the Habs were in more of a playoff race, there'd be more urgency for guys to play hurt. But back-to-back seasons of leading the NHL in man games lost is an ugly trend and could be really concerning if that continues. Well, that's all for this video, and actually I guess I could say a fifth thing I'm concerned about is that the Montreal Canadiens won't lose enough games or get a high enough draft pick, but I think that's honestly secondary to the 4 other things that I mentioned just now, where they had to have traded their veterans, they have to have had a better plan for their first overall pick from last year, fix the power play, fix the injuries. I still believe Kent Hughes, Jeff Gordon, and Marty St. Louis will end up being the best co-GMs and head coach the Montreal Canadiens have had in a long time. And the Habs will get a decently high draft pick regardless this summer, unless obviously they practically win out for the rest of their season. There's also an entire month of season left for important young players that are healthy, like Caden Gooley and Alvi Pinard and Ulonen, to develop even more and possibly earn even bigger roles next year. As for my plan going forward, I'll be honest that living in Thunder Bay and with my current work schedule, I unfortunately don't get to watch every single Habs game. But that's why I plan to produce more big picture style videos around the Montreal Canadiens like this one on my own terms, as opposed to instant reaction or instant analysis videos as soon as things happen. I also plan to go back to the guest interview style I had going when I first started this channel, so stay tuned for that. If that interests you, hit like, hit subscribe, give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Mike Langer for both, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again next time.